I had just completed a demanding 3-day business trip to Chicago. The entire experience had been taxing, back-to-back meetings, late-night planning sessions over drinks, and not a single pause to unwind. By the time I boarded the plane heading home, I was beyond exhausted. Yet there was a sense of relief. My plan was clear and comforting. Show up a day earlier than expected and surprise Emily. I longed for a peaceful evening with her, something we hadn't shared in what felt like forever. The plane landed at 4:45 in the afternoon. I hadn't told Emily about the change in plans. We used to thrive on little surprises like that. Unexpected visits, spontaneous dates. It was our way of keeping things exciting. Lately, though, it seemed like I was the only one trying to keep that spark alive. Emily had grown distant, not cruel, just emotionally absent. Our once deep, endless conversations had been reduced to polite small talk. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Maybe she was just overwhelmed with work. It was a little past 6 when I reached home. As I walked toward the house, something felt off. The driveway was unusually crowded, packed with unfamiliar cars, some even parked along the street. I could hear faint music pulsing from inside. My stomach tightened. Party? On a Thursday? Still clutching my suitcase, I stepped through the front door and instantly froze. The living room, once our shared sanctuary, was filled with unfamiliar faces. Strangers were lounging on the couch, drinks in hand, laughter echoing all around. The coffee table was covered in empty bottles and glasses, like something out of a college house party. And there she was, Emily, right in the middle of it all. She stood by the fireplace, wearing a short black dress I didn't recognize. Her back was to me, and she was laughing, one hand resting a little too comfortably on the arm of a man I had never seen. He leaned in toward her, far closer than appropriate. The room started to go quiet as people realized I was standing there. Emily turned to face me, and for a fleeting moment, her expression cracked. Shock, then panic. But she quickly masked it with an awkward smile. "Jason," she said, her voice unnaturally high. "You're home early?" The man behind her shifted awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. Emily didn't come over to greet me. No explanation. Instead, she stepped forward as if to block my view of him, as though she could make him disappear by simply standing in the way. "Yeah, I noticed," I replied coolly, scanning the room. "Mind telling me what's going on?" "It's just a small gathering," she replied, her tone overly casual. "You know, some friends from..." "From where, exactly?" I cut her off, my voice rising unintentionally. "Because I don't recognize a single face in this house. And I definitely don't know him." I pointed past her, right at the man who now appeared to be inching toward the front door like someone trying to escape unnoticed. Emily's expression hardened. "Can we not do this now? You're making a scene." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "A scene? You think I'm the one making a scene?" I took a step closer, speaking lower now. "I've been gone for 3 days, Emily. Just 3. And this is what I come home to." She looked around the room, clearly uncomfortable with the silent crowd now watching. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Let's go upstairs and talk," she muttered through clenched teeth. "No," I said, pulling my arm free. "We'll talk right here, in front of your guests." The room had gone completely still. I didn't care. I held her gaze, demanding an answer without words. Before she could respond, the sound of the front door slamming broke the silence. I turned in time to see the man dashing down the driveway, then peeling off in his car into the night. And just like that, the dam inside me broke. "Mind telling me who that was?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of disbelief and fury. Her reaction wasn't remorse. There was no explanation, just a cold command. "Get out," she said flatly. For a second, I wasn't sure I'd heard her correctly. "What? You heard me?" she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "This is my house. I don't need you ruining the evening for everyone. Leave." I stared at her, stunned. This didn't feel like the woman I married. She felt like a stranger. Then something inside me snapped. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. It was a letter I hadn't planned to show her that night. But now I was glad I had it. It contained the results of a private investigation I'd arranged while away. My instincts had been whispering for weeks, and I'd finally listened. Without saying a word, I handed her the letter. Her face turned ghostly pale as her eyes scanned the contents. When she finally looked up at me, her face twisted into a storm of anger and fear. What did you do?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "I uncovered the truth," I replied. "Now it's your choice how much of that truth your guests should hear." Without hesitation, she ripped the letter from my hands, crushed it into a ball, and slammed the front door shut in my face. That was the moment I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. The echo of the door slamming followed me as I stood alone on the porch, suitcase still in hand. For a brief moment, I stood frozen, completely still. My chest was tight, each breath shallow and strained. She had slammed the door in my face. In my own home. The people inside hadn't lifted a finger to intervene. Instead, I could hear faint murmurs and awkward giggles as they pretended nothing had occurred. The sheer gall of it ignited a fire in my chest. But I didn't turn away. I remained by the doorframe, unmoving, determined not to let her shut me out of this confrontation. Not tonight. Not after what I had just uncovered. My mind flicked back to the letter she had crumpled in her hand. That letter was my evidence, my leverage, and I wasn't about to give that up. Hiring the private investigator had been a spontaneous decision born out of weeks filled with gnawing suspicions. It had taken the detective less than 7 days to compile the evidence, photographs, exact timestamps, receipts. Every detail I had dreaded was now staring me in the face. And the man she was with tonight? He wasn't the beginning. Just the most recent chapter in a long pattern. Then the door swung open with force, and there she stood. Emily filled the doorway, her expression hard and cold. Without a word to the guests, she stepped outside and closed the door behind her, creating a private space just for us. "You actually had me followed?" she asked in a low, venom-laced voice. "I did," I answered, keeping my tone even, though inside I was unraveling. My hands trembled and my heartbeat roared in my ears. And guess what? My instincts were dead on. She glanced toward the nearby window as if checking whether any curious eyes might be watching. "This is beneath you, Jason. Even for someone like you," she snapped. "Me?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You've been sneaking around, hiding things behind my back for who knows how long, and I'm the one being called low?" Emily folded her arms and leaned casually against the frame, a smug grin creeping onto her face. "You want to know your real issue? You're obsessed with problems that don't exist. You've always been this way. So paranoid, so wrapped up in imaginary fears that you've completely lost sight of how unbearable you've made this marriage." The word unbearable echoed in my mind. "Unbearable?" I repeated, stunned. "You're seeing someone else. You brought a stranger into her home. You threw a party behind my back while I was away. And I'm the root of the problem." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "It was just a party, Jason. You're acting like someone died." That comment made my blood boil. "A party?" I stepped in closer, locking eyes with her. "Then what do you call the hotel stays? The secret meetups late at night? The pictures of you and that man from the cafe last month? Was that part of your party too?" Her face lost some color for a moment, but she quickly regained composure. "You're sad," she said, her tone full of contempt. "Rummaging through my personal life like some kind of amateur spy. Maybe if you put half that energy into trying to make me happy, we wouldn't be here right now." I gave a dry, bitter laugh. "Making you happy? That's your defense? That I failed to keep you entertained, so you found comfort elsewhere?" Her eyes turned steely. "Believe whatever helps you sleep," she said coldly, turning back toward the door. Before she could go back inside, I caught her wrist. My grip wasn't forceful, just enough to pause her. "We're not done," I said with quiet determination. "You're going to tell me the truth? All of it. And then you're going to explain why exactly you think I should be the one to leave." She ripped her arm away, her stare sharp and unforgiving. "You want the truth, Jason?" she said, voice sharp as a blade. "Fine. The truth is, I've been done with this marriage for years. You're dull. Predictable. You act like everything revolves around you. Honestly, I didn't think you'd even notice." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I tried to speak, but she didn't give me the chance. "And another thing," she continued, stepping closer now, her tone rising with every word. "I'm not sorry. I don't feel an ounce of regret. So keep your precious little letter, hold on to your self-righteous anger, and do whatever it is you feel you need to. Because I am done." With that, she spun around and went back inside, slamming the door with finality. This time, I didn't chase after her. I remained where I stood, staring at that closed door, my thoughts spinning in all directions. Her words replayed endlessly in my mind, looping like a broken recording. I'm not sorry. I don't regret a single thing. Something inside me shifted. The pain and disbelief were still there, but now they were joined by something colder. If she believed I was going to quietly walk away, she was gravely mistaken. I didn't step off that porch. Not yet. My mind kept racing, emotions crashing like thunderclouds. I felt ashamed, betrayed, but more than anything, I was livid. Her words kept echoing. I'm not sorry. I don't regret a single thing. If she wanted me gone, then fine. But not before I tore down the illusion she had built. I stepped back toward the door, my hand hovering above the handle. Through the walls, I could hear faint music and laughter. The image of her returning to her party, sipping drinks and giggling like nothing had changed, sparked something inside me. A surge of fire. I pushed the door open and walked back in. As soon as I stepped in, silence swept over the room. All eyes shifted toward me. Emily, leaning casually against the kitchen counter with a glass of wine in her hand, paused mid-laugh. Her smug smile slipped for just a second, giving way to a flash of irritation. Her voice dropped into a hiss as she set her wine down. What do you think you're doing? My response was loud and unwavering. What am I doing? No, Emily, the question is, what exactly are you doing? Throwing a party in the home we built together while sneaking around with some stranger. The tension thickened instantly. The entire room went quiet, every guest frozen, caught between shock and discomfort. A flush crept up Emily's neck, but she was quick to cover it with a forced, dismissive smile. Her tone turned syrupy and cutting. Jason, you're humiliating yourself. Maybe you should go cool off. I'm perfectly calm, I replied, stepping deeper into the room. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, raising it in plain view. Actually, I'm calm enough to show proof. Want to take a look, Emily? Or better yet, should I share it with everyone here? Her expression shifted subtly, eyes widening just enough to show she was rattled, but she stood her ground. You're being absurd, she muttered through clenched teeth. Am I? I turned to address the room directly, my voice carrying across the hushed crowd. Did she happen to mention her little getaway at the Marriott last month? Or how she bailed on our dinner plans, claiming to be stuck at work? Except she wasn't working, she was with him. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Guests whispered among themselves, faces full of discomfort and disbelief. The polished image Emily had worked so hard to maintain was unraveling. Her voice cracked through the murmurs, sharp and loud. Jason, that's enough. I stood firm. No, I'm just getting started. While I was out of town, I hired someone, a professional. A private investigator. And he uncovered everything. Lunch meetups, late nights, and even times when she brought him back here, thinking I wouldn't notice. I turned to her again, my voice cutting but even. So go ahead, Emily. Be honest. Or do you want me to continue? Her face was rigid with fury, her fists tightly clenched at her sides. Everyone waited in breathless silence for her next move. You're pathetic, she finally spat, her voice quivering with rage. You think this little stunt makes you look good? These are my friends, Jason. They know me. They'll trust me over your so-called evidence. I moved in closer, my voice dropping to a cool murmur. Then maybe explain why the guy you were hanging all over earlier took off the second I walked in? The room began to stir with unease. Her guests traded nervous looks, their loyalty starting to waver. Emily could feel her grip slipping. This isn't worth my time, she muttered, turning abruptly back toward the kitchen to retrieve her wine. Oh, it's worth every second of mine, I replied, following close behind. You wanted me out? Fine. But not until everyone here sees you for who you really are. Facing the guests once more, I continued. If anyone's curious, the man she was with tonight isn't the first. She's been entertaining others for months. While I was away, working hard to support us, she was here, treating our home like it was some kind of amusement park. One of her friends, a blonde woman in a sequin top, let out an audible gasp. Another man near the door shifted awkwardly, clearly looking for a way out. Jason, stop it. Emily shouted, slamming her wine glass onto the counter with a sharp clink. No, Emily, I responded, my tone calm and firm now. Enough is you lying straight to my face, disrespecting our marriage, and then playing the victim. Enough is you thinking there would be no consequences. She stormed past me toward the staircase. I'm done with this, she snapped. Good, I called after her. Because so am I. As she disappeared upstairs, the atmosphere in the room stayed heavy and still. A few guests exchanged awkward glances, muttered quiet excuses, and began to leave. I didn't try to stop them. Let them go. Let them carry the story with them. I turned back toward the front door. My suitcase was still sitting where I dropped it earlier. My hands trembled slightly, but my determination was unshaken. She wanted me gone, and I would leave. But not quietly. And definitely not empty-handed. Not yet. I wasn't going to let her walk away and hide, plotting her next move behind closed doors. If this night was going to reach its end, it would do so on my terms. I climbed the stairs, each step creaking underfoot, echoing the weight of shared years in this house. Sundays spent in bed, holiday mornings unwrapping gifts, quiet midnight talks, all those memories now felt hollow. The bedroom door stood slightly open. I nudged it with my hand and stepped inside. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, her back to me, frantically tapping away on her phone. She didn't flinch as I entered. Texting him for advice on what to do next? I asked, my tone biting. She still didn't glance up. You've said what you needed to say, Jason. Just leave. I stepped further in, closing the door behind me. No. We're not done here. At last, she placed her phone on the nightstand and turned to face me. Her expression was cold and unbending. What is it you want now? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry I couldn't hold your interest, she said with a cold edge. Sorry you were too busy playing the perfect husband to realize how miserable I was. Her words struck hard, each sentence like a dagger, but I held my ground. I refused to let her see me falter. Miserable? I echoed, folding my arms tightly. You really think that justifies what you did? The deceit, the betrayal, the utter disregard? If you were that unhappy, why didn't you just walk away? She scoffed, her laugh hollow and bitter. And let you play the wounded saint? Not a chance. I stared at her, barely recognizing the woman standing before me. The person I thought I loved was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizably harsh. You've got some audacity, I said quietly, shaking my head in disbelief. I was faithful to you, Emily. I gave you my all. And this is how you repay me. She rolled her eyes with exasperation. Loyalty doesn't mean much when there's no fire left. You became dull, Jason. Predictable. I needed something more. More. I snapped, my voice rising despite myself. So to feel alive, you decided to blow up our entire life? You ruined our marriage for what? A fleeting thrill? That's not exciting, Emily. That's just sad. Her gaze hardened as she rose to her feet, defiant. You think you're any better? She shot back. You're suffocating, Jason. Always needing control, always stuck in your perfect routine. Meanwhile, I was drowning and you didn't even notice. You never said anything, I countered. You didn't give me a chance to make things right. Instead, you went behind my back and destroyed everything we built. That's on you, not me. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy like a storm about to break. Then she smiled, a cold, cruel twist of her lips that sent a chill through me. You think this makes you the hero? She asked with venom. Publicly humiliating me like that? You think you've come out ahead? Let me make this clear, Jason. You're not walking away untouched. You want to fight? Then let's have one. Her words were like a slap in the face, no apology, no sorrow, only hostility. You really believe this is just some kind of contest? I asked quietly, my voice sharp as ice. Let me be very clear, Emily. I don't lose. Without another word, I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. My chest was heaving, my fingers trembling, but I didn't stop. I went straight downstairs, grabbed my suitcase and left. The evening breeze was cool against my skin as I stood in the driveway, staring at the house that once felt like a refuge. She thought she'd taken control by pushing me out, by twisting the narrative to suit her. But she didn't know what was coming. This wasn't over, far from it. Sitting behind the wheel, the car engine humming softly, my mind churned. Walking away now, defeated and silent, would be exactly what Emily expected. She would want me to disappear quietly, giving her space to rewrite the story and play the victim. I couldn't allow that. I had the upper hand now, the proof, the records. Everything I needed to reveal who she really was. This wasn't about salvaging our relationship anymore. That was gone. Now it was about making sure she faced the consequences. My next action came naturally. I picked up my phone and called the private investigator. He picked up quickly on the second ring. Jason, he greeted calmly, what's the latest? It's time, I replied without hesitation. There was a short pause, followed by a composed, understood. He had all the material, photos, videos, text conversations painstakingly compiled and organized. Even the messages from a disposable phone Emily had been using. I told him to send everything directly to my attorney. That very night. Then I contacted my lawyer. Aaron had been handling my business affairs for many years and was known for being both shrewd and unrelenting. After hearing what had happened, he didn't miss a beat. I'll begin preparing the documents, he said. Divorce proceedings? Protection of your assets. Yes, I confirmed. And prepare a restraining order in case she tries to pull anything drastic. I'm not giving her any leverage. Got it, Aaron replied. I'll have it ready by tomorrow morning. Stay out of the house until this is settled. Leave the rest to me. I ended the call, my hands still unsteady. Not from fear, but from the rush of determination. A part of me I had never truly known was now wide awake. It was focused, detached, and ready to act. But there was more to do. I opened my laptop and began composing an email. The recipients, every person Emily had invited to her party, along with her closest circle, friends and family alike. The subject line was blunt. The truth about Emily. In the body of the message, I kept the text brief. I attached several damning pieces of evidence. An image of her holding hands with someone at a hotel bar, a receipt showing she'd booked a room under a false name, and a series of text messages where she celebrated finally having the freedom to do what I want without Jason knowing. The message began with a stark confession. To all concerned, I'm sorry for addressing this so publicly, but I feel it's important everyone knows the truth. Emily has spent months deceiving, betraying, and dishonoring the life we built together. While I was away working hard to provide for our family, she was seeing other men, at our house, in hotel rooms, and anywhere she thought her actions would go unnoticed. I've attached proof. I'm not looking for discussions or reconciliation. This is simply to prevent any confusion from whatever narrative she may decide to push. Regards, Jason. It was a bombshell, no doubt, but I didn't flinch. She had shattered our relationship, publicly embarrassed me, and tossed our commitment aside like it meant nothing. If she wanted a war, she just declared it. I pressed send and watched the email vanish into the digital ether. For the first time that evening, a subtle calm washed over me. It wasn't peace, there was none of that here, but a solid sense of control. I wasn't just standing by anymore. Starting the car, I drove toward a hotel downtown, my mind spinning with anticipation of what the next day would bring. Whatever Emily had believed about me before, she was about to face a version of Jason she hadn't seen, and I wasn't going to stop until her picture-perfect world unraveled completely. By morning, I awoke to the sterile chill of the hotel room. The previous night's chaos came rushing back, but strangely, there was no dread, only clarity. This marked the beginning of the end, and for once, I was the one holding all the cards. I picked up my phone, prepared to face the aftermath. The email had done exactly what I intended. My inbox was bursting with responses. Reactions ranging from stunned disbelief to subtle outrage, especially from those closest to Emily. It was predictable. Her inner circle would rally around her, but others were already showing signs of doubt. One reply stood out. It was from Chloe, Emily's best friend since their school days. She wrote, "Jason, I honestly don't know what to say. I knew Emily wasn't happy, but I had no idea it had reached this point. I want you to know I don't support what she's done. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Her message was brief and cautious, exactly as I expected. Chloe had always been the peacekeeper among their friends. She wouldn't openly condemn Emily, but she wasn't about to defend behavior that couldn't be justified either. I mentally filed her message away and moved on to the rest of the digital storm. Online chatter was picking up. Emily's Instagram, usually a polished gallery of idealized snapshots, had gone silent. But her latest posts were filling up with subtle inquiries and not-so-subtle passive jabs. Then my phone rang. Aaron was on the other end, cutting straight to business. "Things are moving fast," he said. "The divorce paperwork is prepped. I'll need your signature by noon. We've secured your financial accounts and flagged the property. If she attempts anything sneaky, we'll know." "Good," I replied, leaning into the uncomfortable chair. "One more thing, she's gonna come out swinging. People like her don't go down quietly. Be prepared." I thanked him and ended the call, the word retaliation repeating in my mind. Of course, she wouldn't accept this without a fight. But I was ready. Roughly an hour later, I was back in my car, heading toward the house. Not to stay, just to collect a few essentials. As I pulled up, I noticed her car was gone. That was a relief. The house felt like a shadow of itself, still bearing the remnants of the night before, discarded cups, wrinkled napkins, and the lingering scent of spilled alcohol, a silent testimony to her recklessness. I headed upstairs, directly to the bedroom. My suitcase, right where I had left it, sat untouched. I began to gather what I needed: clothes, paperwork, a few personal effects. But while digging through one drawer, something unexpected caught my attention. Hidden beneath her scarves was a small, unmarked box. I pulled it out and flipped it open, revealing a burner phone. My heartbeat quickened as I powered it on. The screen lit up. It wasn't even locked. In no time, I was scrolling through a stream of messages, photos, and call history. What I saw made my stomach twist. There were messages exchanged with at least 3 different men, some light and flirtatious, others downright explicit. Photos, plans to meet, hotel names and times. But one message stopped me cold. "I think he's catching on. If he finds out, it's over. Let's be more careful." Dated just 2 weeks ago. My blood boiled as I stared at the screen. She had known. She had sensed my suspicions, and instead of owning up to anything, she had dug in deeper. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket, breaking the moment. It was Chloe calling. "Jason," she said quickly, tension clear in her voice. "Emily is livid. She found out about the email and is already talking about involving a lawyer. She's also spreading stories claiming you were controlling and emotionally manipulative." I clenched my jaw. Of course, she was going to try and twist things to her advantage. "Thanks for letting me know," I responded sharply, not bothering to hide my irritation. "Be careful," Chloe warned, her tone tense. "She's not thinking clearly right now, and when Emily gets like this, well, you know what she's like." I ended the call without replying. My attention had shifted entirely to the burner phone. This was my trump card, proof that her web of lies went deeper than I'd ever imagined. With the box securely tucked into my bag, I left the house. Emily wanted to fight dirty? She had just handed me the very thing I needed to take her down. The drive back to the hotel blurred by as my mind spun through a storm of strategies. Every step, every reaction, every outcome mapped out like a strategic board game. Emily had shown her cards, but she had no clue just how many moves ahead I was already thinking. This phone wasn't just evidence, it was a weapon. It validated all my doubts, highlighted her deception in painful detail, and confirmed that every action she took had been fully intentional. Back at the hotel, I sat down at the modest desk and began combing through the device. The texts unraveled a clear and damning sequence of events. One name kept appearing over and over: Chris. His presence was constant in nearly every thread. The way he spoke was overly casual, too familiar, and the images he sent were deeply inappropriate. Their messages revealed secret meetings at our house, mocking comments about my cluelessness, and even their plans for future rendezvous. They had laughed about the party, saying it was the perfect excuse for him to be in our home. My jaw tightened with every message I read. Had I returned home just a few hours later, would I have found him there? Would I have stumbled into something even more devastating? But one message hit harder than all the rest. "Chris, when are you telling him? You promised it'd be over before Christmas." He'd replied, "I will, just waiting for the right time. He's too focused on work to notice right now." This wasn't some random mistake or fleeting lapse in judgment. She had been planning to end our marriage, step by step, while pretending everything was fine, smiling at me, playing the devoted partner, all while plotting our downfall. My phone vibrated again. Another call from Chloe. This time I picked up. "Jason," she began, her voice taut with tension. "Emily knows about the burner phone. She's losing it. She's terrified you're going to expose her." My reply came without emotion. "She's right." Chloe let out a breath. "Look, I get that you're upset." "Upset?" I cut in, my voice rising. "Chloe, she lied to me, disrespected me, and brought someone else into the life we built together. And now she's trying to make it look like I'm the one at fault? Don't give me a moral lecture." "I'm not," Chloe said quickly. "I just want to warn you. She's desperate, Jason. And when Emily feels backed into a corner, she doesn't fold. She fights back hard." "Let her try," I replied coldly. "I'm prepared." Chloe paused. "What are you planning to do?" "You don't want to know," I said, then ended the call. The following hours were spent executing my plan. I copied the burner phone's contents onto a secure drive, ensuring everything was backed up. Selected screenshots were sent to my lawyer and also shared with a few close friends. People I trusted to speak up for me if Emily tried to spin the story in her favor. By late afternoon, everything was set. The legal documents were ready, the evidence secured, and the first move in my strategy laid out. But I wasn't stopping there. I picked up my phone and dialed someone Emily would never expect me to reach out to, her mother. "Jason," Linda answered, her voice careful but kind. Despite Emily and I having gone through rough patches before, Linda and I had always gotten along. "Hi, Linda," I began, keeping my tone even. "There's something I need to talk to you about." It's serious. There was a pause. This sounds important. It is, I confirmed. I wanted you to hear this from me before Emily gets the chance to twist it. She's been unfaithful for several months now, and I have undeniable proof. I'm filing for divorce. Linda let out a sharp breath. Oh my goodness. Jason, I don't even know how to respond. Are you absolutely sure? Yes, I said firmly. And I'm not telling you this to hurt you, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. I'm not the villain in this, regardless of what Emily might try to claim. Silence followed for several seconds. When Linda spoke again, her voice shook. I barely recognize her anymore. She's been so withdrawn, so cold. I assumed it was just stress. But there's more going on, I said quietly, and I wanted to be honest with you about it. Thank you for telling me, she whispered. I don't know how I'm going to look her in the eye after this. But thank you. As I ended the call, I felt an unusual mix of emotions. There was some relief knowing Linda believed me, but also a heavy sorrow. This was no longer just about Emily and me. This fallout was spreading. She had tried to paint me as the bad guy, but now things were shifting. The tide was turning, and Emily didn't yet understand what that meant. She declared war, but had no clue how far I was willing to go. Morning sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains, casting a golden hue on the room without offering any warmth. I had been up early, driven by a sense of restless determination. This was the day I reclaimed control. Emily had struck the match. Now it was my turn to watch the flames rise. The first person I called was Aaron. I didn't waste time with greetings. I need the divorce paperwork filed today, I stated firmly, and get an emergency motion to freeze our house and joint bank accounts. She can't access a single cent. It's already in progress, Aaron replied calmly. By tonight. She won't be able to move a single dollar without our office being notified. Excellent, I said. There's something else. I want to publicly cut ties with her. Draft a statement, leak it if necessary. People need to understand that this is her doing, not mine. Aaron paused for a moment. That's a bold approach. It might provoke her further. That's the point, I replied without hesitation. By the time I ended the call, the wheels were in full motion. I checked my inbox. Nothing from Emily. Just more responses to the email I had blasted earlier. Most were supportive. A few maintained a cautious neutrality. But one response immediately caught my eye. Jason, you don't know me, but I thought you should be aware. Emily isn't who she pretends to be. She's been pulling this for years. You're not the first and, unfortunately, probably not the last. I've got stories if you need them. It was signed Ryan. The name meant nothing to me, but there was something about the tone that felt authentic. Yours. That was new information. I sent a reply right away, asking for specifics. While waiting for his response, I decided to return to the house one final time. Not to gather belongings or tie up loose ends, but to send a message. When I pulled into the driveway, Emily's car was already there. I got out, the burner phone secure in my pocket, and made my way to the front door. A single knock was enough. She flung it open, fury etched across her face. What are you doing here? She snapped, her voice sharp. I came to have a conversation, I said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. Emily trailed me into the living room, arms crossed tightly. Haven't you embarrassed me enough already? What more do you want? Turning to face her, I kept my tone even and cold. You need to understand something. This is no longer your game. You've lost control of the story. People see you clearly now, and the fallout is only beginning. She let out a scoff, but behind it, I saw a flash of unease in her expression. You're bluffing. From my pocket, I pulled out the burner phone and placed it on the coffee table. Her face instantly lost color when she recognized it. Go ahead, I said. Take a look. Every lie, every scheme, every betrayal. It's all there. And I've already forwarded copies to my lawyer and a few of your acquaintances. They deserve to know, don't they? Her gaze locked on the phone, her hands subtly trembling. And then she cracked. You're a coward, she said through clenched teeth, her voice shaking. You can't stand that I moved on. You think destroying my reputation will fix your life? Nobody cares about your little heartbreak. I don't need their sympathy, I replied evenly. I just need them to see the real you. She broke eye contact and suddenly lunged for the phone, but I stepped in between. You don't get to escape this so easily, I said. You created this mess, Emily. Now you're going to live with it. Her breathing was heavy, her eyes narrowed, but she didn't try again. Instead, she spat out, "You're pathetic." I offered a slight smirk. Maybe so, but at least I'm not dishonest. Before she could fire back, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked the screen, and email from Ryan had arrived. The subject line read, "Proof attached." I turned the phone screen toward Emily and smiled as I opened the message. "Seems like your past is finally catching up to you," I said, scrolling through the attached files, photos, screenshots, and audio clips. Panic washed over her face. "Who is that? Who sent that to you?" "Just someone you burned before me," I replied, sliding the phone back into my pocket. "Apparently, your trail of destruction is longer than I expected." The mask she wore finally shattered. Her tough exterior gave way to something close to fear. "Jason," she whispered, her voice suddenly soft, laced with desperation. "Please. We can work this out. Let's just talk, all right?" "No," I said, my voice firm and final. "We're far past that point. You wanted chaos, Emily. Now you've got it." Without giving her another glance, I turned and left. This wasn't just a relationship falling apart. This was a reckoning. As I walked away from the house, her last words echoed in my mind. "Please, we can fix this." But it wasn't a sign of remorse, it was a survival tactic. For once, she wasn't in control, and she knew it. Good. I climbed into my car, took a moment to breathe, and opened Ryan's email again. The files were devastating, screenshots of chats, inappropriate pictures, and voice recordings. Ryan's experience mirrored mine exactly. Deceit, unfaithfulness, manipulation. She had discarded him as easily as she was trying to discard me. But one line stood out in his message more than anything. "She always underestimated me, but I kept everything. People like her always think they'll get away with it." The message struck a nerve. I couldn't help but recall how Emily had misjudged me in much the same way. I responded to Ryan with a quick thank you and asked if he'd be open to talking with my attorney. His answer came back nearly instantly. "Of course. Just let me know the time and place." With each new piece of evidence, my case was becoming more compelling. But this was no longer solely about the legal proceedings. It had become something deeper, a mission to prevent Emily from twisting her lies into a brand new beginning. As the hours passed, the ripple effects became more obvious. My phone buzzed nonstop with texts and calls from friends we both knew. Many were furious, their trust in Emily shattered. "Mark, man, I'm honestly sorry. I didn't see any of this coming. If you need help, just say the word." Laura said, "I'm shocked. I always had a weird feeling about her, but now it makes sense." Even Chloe reached out again. "She's spiraling, Jason. She's been calling everyone she can to stay ahead of the story. She told me you're making all this up just to ruin her life." I couldn't help but let out a dry, bitter laugh. Let her spin her stories. I had enough proof to dismantle her false narrative a dozen times over. Chloe hesitated before adding, "I know you're right, but still, be cautious. She acts out when she's cornered." I thanked her and ended the call, though her warning stayed with me long after. Later in the afternoon, Aaron reached out with progress on the case. "The paperwork's been filed," he confirmed. "The house and financial accounts are now frozen. And the divorce petition is solid, she won't be able to find any loopholes." "Good," I replied. "And what about the burner phone evidence?" "That's already been included in the case documents," he said. "With Ryan's emails and the timeline we've outlined, it'll be tough for her to make herself look like the innocent party." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of relief. Still, I knew we weren't anywhere near the finish line. Around 6 that evening, an unfamiliar number popped up on my phone with a chilling message. "You're walking a dangerous line, Jason. Turn back before it's too late." My stomach twisted. The tone and timing left little doubt as to who had sent it. It screamed desperation, one last effort to scare me off. I responded with a steady hand. "Not falling for it, Emily. See you in court." Then I blocked the number without hesitation. That night, alone in the quiet of my hotel room, my thoughts wandered back to the life we had once built together, the trips we took, the celebrations, the laughter we shared in quiet moments. It all felt distant now, as if it had been nothing more than a performance she had rehearsed to perfection. But no illusion holds forever, not once someone dares to look beneath the surface. I stared at the burner phone in my hand one last time. It had become more than just a device. It symbolized her arrogance and my unwavering determination. Emily's carefully constructed world was crumbling, and I was only just beginning. The following morning erupted into complete disarray. Notifications poured into my phone, calls, texts, emails, and social media alerts in a flood. Emily had finally made her move. Her first strike was a dramatic Facebook post, exactly the kind of melodrama I expected, full of feigned vulnerability and martyrdom. I never thought I'd have to share something like this, but I can't stay silent any longer. Jason has been trying to tear my life apart, spreading lies and isolating me from people who care about me. He's always been controlling and emotionally damaging. Yes, I've made mistakes, but no one deserves to be treated like this. To those who really know me, thank you. I need your support now more than ever. The reactions were mixed. Some people from her circle quickly jumped to defend her, echoing her accusations and portraying me as the villain. But others, especially those we both knew, asked hard questions or expressed serious doubt. None of it caught me off guard. This was classic Emily, twisting facts, donning the role of the victim, and counting on the idea that people would accept her version without much digging. But this time I had prepared for it. I called Aaron and brought him up to speed. She's gone public. She's accusing me of emotional abuse now. Aaron remained composed. We saw this coming. Stick to our strategy. Keep it factual. The more dramatic she gets, the easier it'll be to show the truth. After our call, I knew it was time to respond. I carefully crafted a post of my own, firm, measured, and grounded in facts. Some of you may have read Emily's recent post. While she has the right to share her point of view, I feel it's important to clarify certain details. The core issues in our marriage stemmed from repeated betrayals on her part, and I have evidence to confirm this. This isn't about manipulation or control, this is about accountability. I've filed for divorce and the truth will come out. Thank you to everyone who has supported me through this process. Attached to the post was a single image, a screenshot from the burner phone. It showed Emily making light of how she'd misled me. It wasn't deeply incriminating, but it was just enough to make people think twice. Reactions came fast. My inbox flooded again, this time with encouragement, questions, and disbelief. People wanted the full story. Some were stunned that Emily could fall so far. Then something unexpected happened. Around midday, an email landed in my inbox. It was from Ryan. He had conducted his own investigation and discovered even more damning secrets hidden in Emily's past. Among the revelations was proof that she had misappropriated funds from a small nonprofit where she had volunteered several years back. Additionally, there was documentation of a lawsuit filed by a previous employer accusing her of violating a contract. I scrolled through the files in disbelief. This is unreal, I murmured, stunned by how deeply her deception ran. Without hesitation, I sent the documents to Aaron. He called within moments, his voice sharp and urgent. This shifts the entire situation. If we can authenticate this, we're not just handling a divorce anymore, she could be looking at legal consequences. His words landed heavily. Emily had always lived on the edge, but this level of recklessness was beyond what I had imagined. Do it, I told him. Confirm everything and include it in our case. By the time the day progressed, Emily's dramatic Facebook post had started to crumble. People began to question the inconsistencies, poking holes in her version of events. The more she attempted to sidestep the scrutiny, the clearer her deception became. Chloe texted me, she's falling apart. People are starting to catch on. I responded with quiet determination, I'm not stopping. Later that evening, another message came through, this one from the private investigator. He had tracked down Chris, the man Emily had met at that party. Chris revealed that Emily had led him on with false promises, claiming there was a future between them once she ended things with Jason. Shockingly, Chris hadn't even known she was married until recently. Attached to the report were text messages Emily had sent Chris, along with a formal statement he provided. One particular message stood out in bold clarity, "Don't worry about Jason. He's too dumb to figure anything out." Those words cut deep. But rather than break me, they only strengthened my resolve. I wasn't clueless and I certainly wasn't foolish. For the first time, I felt completely in control. Emily's carefully spun world was collapsing faster than I had dared hope. Lies were piling up, proof was stacking, and the people backing her were disappearing. By the following day, Aaron and I planned to file an updated petition including every new revelation. Emily had asked for a battle, and now she was neck-deep in the one she created. I had no intention of backing down until every illusion she'd built was stripped away. As the sun rose, the situation spiraled further. Emily's efforts to steer the narrative had reached a frantic pace. She was desperately trying to salvage her image, but it was obvious she was losing control. Aaron rang me early in the day with new developments. "She's filed a counter-response," he said. "She's accusing you of emotional abuse and claiming you sabotaged her career. It's ridiculous considering what we've gathered, but it shows how far she's willing to go." I massaged my temples, feeling the weight of it all. Let her keep digging. We have the burner phone records, Ryan's emails, and Chris's testimony. Everything's lined up, right? Absolutely, Aaron confirmed. Once this goes before a judge, her credibility will be in tatters. But there's more. What else? I asked. She tried to move funds from your shared account into her personal one, he explained, his voice tense. Luckily, the freeze order caught it just in time. Still, it's a clear sign she's panicking. That reckless move confirmed my suspicions. Emily's facade was crumbling, and this wasn't just a custody or divorce matter anymore. The information Ryan had found regarding her financial misconduct was a ticking bomb. Aaron had already passed it along to someone in the prosecutor's office. It was only a matter of time before real consequences followed. By late morning, I decided it was time to escalate things further. I reached out to Chloe. Jason, she said warily. What's going on now? I need a favor, I told her. Emily's still pushing this idea that I'm the villain. I need you to reach out to the mutual friends who are still undecided. Show them the messages from the burner phone. Let them make up their own minds. Chloe hesitated. That's a bold move. Are you sure about this? She's already accused me of abuse, I replied firmly. She's trying to wreck my reputation. I'm done playing fair. After a pause, Chloe exhaled slowly. All right, I'll take care of it. Soon, the impact began to spread. Chloe kept me updated with texts as she discreetly shared the evidence with people close to Emily. Just showed Lauren the screenshots. She's livid, says she's done defending Emily. Now Katie's calling Emily a narcissist. Didn't expect that. While those ripples spread, I received another call from the investigator. Jason, he began, I dug deeper into that nonprofit embezzlement issue. The organization never pressed charges because Emily agreed to pay back the money quietly. I reached out to the director. They're open to providing a statement. I shook my head in disbelief. Her pattern of recklessness was catching up with her, and this time there was no escape. That evening, the tension reached a boiling point. Sitting in my hotel room, I was reviewing the final version of our revised petition when my phone vibrated. It was Emily. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered, my tone cold. What is it you want? There was a long pause on the other end, then her voice came through, trembling. Jason, we need to talk. Face to face. A dry, humorless laugh escaped my lips. You can't be serious. Not after everything that's happened. Her voice trembled on the other end of the line, raw and breaking. Please. I mean it. I made a mistake, okay? But we can work through this. Just come to the house. I'll explain everything. There was a pleading desperation in her voice, almost begging, but I wasn't moved. No, thanks, I replied without emotion. Whatever you need to say can go through your lawyer. That's when her desperation snapped and turned sharp. Oh, really? You think you're some kind of saint? Mr. Perfect? Her voice rose with anger. Fine. Let's see how perfect everyone thinks you are when I tell them who you really are. You believe I don't have anything on you? Think again. Do what you have to do, I said coolly. But understand this, every step you take now only deepens the hole you're in. You've run out of moves. The line went quiet for a long stretch before she finally hung up. I placed the phone down with steady hands, a sense of finality settling over me. That was her last attempt, a feeble move made from a place of fear and desperation. But it was too late. The truth, the people willing to speak up, and the evidence we had were all against her. Before the week was over, Aaron and I would bring it all to court. Everything Emily had tried to keep hidden. Her betrayals, her deceit with finances, and every manipulation she had spun. Soon it would all be brought into the light. And when that happened, she wouldn't just lose a court case. She'd lose her grip on the life she had so carefully fabricated. The courtroom buzzed with a quiet but tense energy. Every person alert, sensing the gravity of what was unfolding. I sat beside Aaron, my attorney. On the outside, I looked composed, but inside, I was burning with a mix of anticipation and anger. Across from us sat Emily, dressed and poised to present her usual illusion of innocence. But cracks were beginning to show. She could feel the collapse coming. Once the judge entered and the hearing began, Emily's legal team wasted no time trying to paint me as manipulative and emotionally abusive. Their arguments were passionate, full of dramatic emphasis, but they lacked substance. There was no hard evidence, only Emily's carefully spun narrative, built from half-truths and distortion. Aaron remained composed, waiting for our moment. Then he began to unravel their claims with precision. He started by holding up a small device. This burner phone is crucial, Your Honor. he stated. Contained within it are text exchanges, images, and call logs that reveal the respondent's infidelity and her deliberate efforts to mislead my client. He read selected messages aloud, each one a blow to the false story Emily had tried to sell. The courtroom sat in near silence, broken only by the occasional gasp from those listening. And that was just the beginning. Next, Aaron introduced Ryan's statement. Calm and composed, Ryan recounted how Emily had repeatedly deceived him, how she lied, betrayed his trust, and disappeared without warning. His account painted a clear and troubling picture of Emily's true character. But the most devastating moment came when Aaron turned to the financial documents. He detailed Emily's embezzlement from the nonprofit she was part of, referencing account inconsistencies, a repayment plan she had tried to hide, and a formal statement from the organization's director. Your Honor, Aaron concluded with gravity, this isn't someone who was trapped in an abusive marriage. This is someone who made self-centered, reckless choices that left behind a trail of damage, not only to my client, but to others as well. Emily's attorney tried to intervene, objecting, but the courtroom had already shifted. The judge's face grew increasingly stern, the weight of the evidence pressing down on everyone present. When it was Emily's turn to take the stand, she attempted to recover her poise, but it was clear she was unraveling. Her answers were dodgy, defensive. She tried to shift blame at every turn, but her usual manipulations fell flat. Then came a decisive question from Aaron. Mrs. Daniels, he said, his tone razor-sharp, can you explain why you tried to withdraw funds from your joint account after the court had issued a freeze on those assets? Emily hesitated, clearly flustered. I didn't know about the court order, she murmured, her voice uncertain. That's strange, Aaron replied smoothly. Because we have a time-stamped notification from the bank alerting you when the transaction was denied. Silence. Emily's complexion turned pale. The judge didn't need much time to reach a decision. The evidence overwhelmingly supports the petitioner, she said firmly. The respondent's conduct shows a repeated pattern of dishonesty, betrayal, and fiscal irresponsibility. I'm granting the divorce on the grounds of infidelity and awarding Mr. Daniels the majority of shared assets, including the residence. As the gavel came down, I felt a massive weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't even glance at Emily, whose face was now frozen in disbelief and silent rage. The case was won. But more importantly, I had won back my peace and my independence from her relentless deception. Leaving the courtroom, I felt an unusual mix of emotions swirling: relief, a sense of justice served, and even a tinge of sadness for what our life might have been. But above all else, I felt ready to start again. Emily had tried to pull me down with her lies, but in the end, those same lies were her undoing. That chapter was finally closed, and as I walked out into the sunlight, one truth stood above all else. She would never have the power to affect my life again.